The movie begins with a reporter and a cameraman investigating a crime scene, but then suddenly they are attacked by a deranged man who brutally finishes off both of them. The scene then shifts to a flashback 3 days earlier, presenting a group of college students. They are named Chad, Chuck, Allison, Mitch, Chloe, Todd, Jason, Naomi, and Mike. All of them are going camping together in the woods of West Virginia. While driving, a pickup truck passes them, and two hillbilly men named Dale and Tucker observe them, making them suspicious. Sometime later, they realize that they still need to buy beer, so they stop at a gas station to purchase some. While Chad looks for beer, Allison explores the store, but then she encounters Dale watching her, but Chloe quickly arrives and takes her away. Later, Dale is completely fascinated by Allison and continues to watch her. He confides in Tucker about his new crush, who encourages him to go ahead and talk to her. However, Dale claims that such a pretty girl would never be interested in someone like him. Even so, Tucker tells him that he is a handsome man and encourages him to believe in himself. Eventually, Dale decides to confess his feelings, but due to his nervousness, he ends up speaking awkwardly, which scares Allison. Chad then tells him to stay away from his friend, and the students get into their car and leave. This leaves Dale very upset, and he scolds himself for being so awkward and a loser. Afterward, he and Tucker also leave, and on the way, they are stopped by a police officer who asks for their driver's licenses. Tucker shows him his license and says they are heading to a lakeside vacation home. Hearing this, the officer advises them not to go, claiming that there is only pain and suffering there. However, the duo ignores his warning and proceeds toward their destination. The two arrive at their cabin, which is very old and rusty, but they are excited to have their own place and call it a mansion. While looking around, they notice that one part of the wall is covered with newspaper clippings about a wave of murders that happened in this place years ago. Moments later, Tucker places his hand against a wooden post, which soon collapses, triggering a trap. Fortunately, Dale runs over to him and manages to save him in time. Meanwhile, in another part of the woods, the group of college students is also making a campfire and having fun. During their conversation, Chad shares a story about an incident that occurred in this place 20 years ago. He claims that at that time, some college students came to camp at that location, and it didn't take long for a hillbilly to appear and start attacking them. He ended up killing everyone except for one girl, who somehow managed to escape and survive. Hearing this, the group is horrified. However, their spirits change abruptly when Chuck suggests they go swimming in a nearby lake. That night, while Allison is alone, Chad approaches her and tries to flirt. He claims that they are better than the rest of the group and suggests they should be together. He then tries to kiss her, but she refuses and walks away. In the next scene, we see Tucker and Dale in a small boat on the lake, fishing together. They then hear the group of teenagers having fun in the same lake. Moments later, their eyes fix on Allison, who is perched on a large rock. Seeing her looking like a lake goddess, Tucker gets excited, but Dale feels nervous. He then yells for Tucker to stop looking, which is also heard by Allison, causing her to slip and accidentally fall off the rock. Shortly after, the duo realizes that Allison hasn't resurfaced from the water and becomes worried. Then Dale jumps in. He finds her unconscious, and the duo places her in the boat. Her friends notice this, but instead think that the hillbillies are trying to kidnap Allison. Tucker shouts that they have taken their friend, but the group is frightened and flees. They immediately rush to Chad and tell him that Allison has been kidnapped. Chad then grabs an axe and runs to the lake, but by the time he arrives, the duo has already left with their friend. The next morning, Allison opens her eyes and finds herself in the cabin. Believing she has been kidnapped, she screams in terror as Dale approaches her with pancakes. However, Dale thinks she doesn't like pancakes and goes to prepare another breakfast for her. Meanwhile, in the forest, Allison's friends are paranoid and still searching for her. Chuck suggests contacting the police, but Chad insists that the police are useless. Despite this, Chuck grabs the car keys and leaves to find the police. Sometime later, the group finds the cabin and becomes convinced that Allison is being held captive there. Inside the cabin, Dale brings another breakfast to Allison, and she asks what he is doing there. Dale sincerely explains how she was unconscious, and he and Tucker brought her to the cabin. He also introduces his dog and states that it is very gentle. Dale mentions that he tried to call her friends, but they ran away in fear. Hearing this, Allison finally realizes that Dale is harmless and is not trying to hurt her. Outside, the group sends Mitch to check on Allison, and he cautiously approaches the cabin. Meanwhile, Tucker is using a chainsaw to cut wood, during which he accidentally hits a beehive. The bees start to attack him, so he runs in panic into the woods with his chainsaw. Seeing this, the group thinks he is trying to attack them, so they all run to save themselves. Mitch is running alongside Tucker, constantly looking at him in fear. Due to this, he accidentally impales himself on a broken tree, resulting in his death. Back at the cabin, we see that Allison and Dale are having fun playing board games. Moments later, Tucker enters and scolds Dale for not helping him during the bee attack. He claims he saw Allison's friends running through the woods, though he doesn't know why. Upon hearing this, she decides to go out and find them, but Dale asks her to rest, saying that they will look for her friends. Meanwhile, in the forest, the group finds Mitch's dead body and is horrified. They assume that the hillbilly duo must have killed him and left his body as a message. They think they should leave, but Chad refuses, saying they can all handle these two killers easily. Suddenly, they hear someone approaching, so they run to hide behind a bush. Dale and Tucker then arrive and start calling out for the group. When they do not get a response, they carve a message into the wood for the group and leave. When the group sees the message, they misinterpret the situation again and assume it must be some kind of threat. After some time, Dale tries to dig a hole to make a bathroom, while Tucker is working on a wood chipper. Allison approaches Dale and asks about her friends, and he tells her that they left a message for their friends and that they should be arriving soon. The girl then offers to help him dig the hole, and Dale comments that a pretty girl like her shouldn't be doing this kind of work. At that moment, her friends are secretly watching this and presume that she is being forced to dig her own grave, so they decide that they must do something urgently to save her. With that, Todd grabs a wooden spear and runs toward Dale to attack him. The three of them fall into the hole, and Todd impales himself with his own spear, resulting in his death. On the other hand, Mike decides to attack Tucker, but instead accidentally jumps into the wood chipper and is chopped to pieces. Tucker does his best to get him out of there, but to no avail, and the group now believes he deliberately killed Mike. Afterwards, Tucker and Dale lock themselves in the cabin with an unconscious Allison. They believe that these students have made a death pact and are ending their own lives. Dale suggests calling the police, but Tucker doesn't think it's a good idea since they will be blamed for the murders. Therefore, the duo decides they need to clean up the mess before anyone arrives. Meanwhile, in the forest, the group feels powerless as one by one, all their friends are dying. Suddenly, they hear a police car approaching, so they run toward the road, although Chad refuses to let them go. It turns out that Chuck brought a police officer with him to capture the killers. Back at the cabin, the duo manages to remove Mike's body from the chipper after much struggle, but as they proceed to bury him, the police officer arrives with the group of students. The two are very scared and try to explain the ridiculous incident to the officer. They also claim that Allison is inside and that they haven't hurt her at all. Thus, the officer leaves the students in the car and goes to the cabin to check. After checking on Allison, the officer discovers that she is unharmed and well. But the situation worsens when he leans against an unstable beam, which collapses on him and strikes him in the head. He ends up dying from his injuries. Seeing this, the students presume that the hillbillies must have killed him and plan to attack them. Chuck then grabs the police officer's revolver and tries to shoot the duo. However, since he has never used a gun before, he accidentally takes his own life. At that moment, Chad arrives and attempts to shoot the duo again, forcing them to run back into the cabin. Moments later, Dale looks out the window and is horrified to notice that Chad is holding his beloved dog hostage. Tucker then asks Dale to use a nail gun as a distraction while he goes through the back door to rescue his dog. Soon, Dale begins shooting at the group with the nail gun, and Tucker manages to free the dog. But in the process, he himself is discovered by the group. He tries to run as fast as he can and hides in the wood. Unfortunately, Chad eventually catches up to him and knocks him out. When Tucker wakes up, he finds himself hanging upside down in a tree. He tries to explain to the group that he didn't kill their friends, but Chad refuses to listen and starts cutting his fingers. Back at the cabin, Allison regains consciousness, and a distressed Dale tells her that her friends took Tucker. With tears in her eyes, he also explains how they tried to kill his dog. Allison realizes that her friends must have misinterpreted the situation and vows to fix it. At that moment, they hear someone banging on the door and cursing Dale's name. Allison decides to check what is happening and is horrified to see the lifeless bodies of her friends on the floor. Next, she finds something wrapped in a cloth on the doorstep, and Dale quickly realizes that it is Tucker's clothes. Upon opening them, they find his fingers inside, along with a note telling Dale to come and get his friend. Having passed the limits, he grabs an axe and decides to confront the group. Allison tries to stop him, asking him not to complicate things further, but he says that things have already gone wrong and doesn't understand why his friends think he and Tucker are psychopaths. After that, Dale heads into the woods, where he eventually finds his friend hanging upside down in a tree. Tucker tries to warn him not to get any closer. Then, fortunately, his lower parts are spared from the trap, and he proceeds to free his friend. Meanwhile, Chad and Naomi enter the cabin, where they find Allison and ask her to come out with them. Chad then begins dousing the place with fuel to burn her. Allison tries to stop him, saying it's a big misunderstanding and that Dale and Tucker haven't hurt her. Hearing this, her friends are shocked and believe that Allison must have fallen in love with her captor. She vehemently denies this, but Chad becomes very furious and lunges to attack her. At that moment, Tucker and Dale also arrive at the cabin. Allison then calms everyone down and asks them to discuss the situation. She serves them tea, but Chad admits that he is allergic to chamomile tea. Allison then asks both sides to explain their situation one by one, before making any hasty conclusions. At that moment, Chad recounts how, 20 years ago, his parents and friends came to this location and were attacked by a hillbilly. His mother was pregnant at the time, and unfortunately, the killer tortured and assaulted her. Despite the ordeal, she managed to escape from this place while his father and the rest of the group lost their lives. He then reveals that his mother was sent to a mental institution afterward, and he heard this story from his grandmother. Dale feels bad for what happened to Chad's parents, but asserts that he is not responsible for that situation. Meanwhile, Jason and Chloe arrive from outside the cabin and see their friends drinking tea with Dale. Thinking that their friends are in danger, the two decide to take action. Jason then appears with a lawnmower and tries to attack Tucker, but ends up killing his friend Naomi. Chad immediately flips the table on top of Dale and tries to attack him with the axe, but Tucker saves him. Enraged, Chad throws a lamp at them, but it flies straight toward Jason. Chloe tries to extinguish the fire on Jason, but ends up using alcohol, and the fire quickly spreads from that to the fuel tank, and the whole house begins to burn. Amid the flames, Chad attempts to escape, but is grabbed by Naomi, while Tucker and Dale lead Allison and manage to escape. Soon, the cabin explodes, and they think everyone is dead inside. But Chad rises with his face half burned and charges at the three with his axe. They quickly jump into a car and flee. But along the way, Dale becomes distracted and ends up crashing the car into a tree. Sometime later, Dale opens his eyes and notices Tucker, who is gravely injured and propped up against a tree. He asks about Allison, and Tucker reveals that Chad took her away. He then urges Dale to go after her and save his crush before it's too late. Tucker reveals that his dog can lead him to her. Soon, morning arrives, and with the dog's help, Dale arrives at an old wooden mill. Inside, they find Chad, who has tied Allison to a piece of wood. He scolds her for being on the side of the kidnappers and claims that he will forgive her if she apologizes. Not long after, Dale prepares himself with some tools and then appears in the mill, causing Chad to flee. Dale then tries to free Allison, but suddenly, Chad's voice comes from a loudspeaker, declaring that she shouldn't have betrayed him. With that, he activates a switch that starts the machine, which begins to cut the wood beneath Allison. Dale panics and tries to cut the rope, but Chad arrives and kicks him away. The two men then fight for a while, and at one point, Dale throws an axe toward Allison, which eventually cuts her rope and frees her. He then grabs the chainsaw and begins attacking Chad with it. After pushing him away, he and Allison climb the stairs and block the basement door. And to their surprise, they find a newspaper clipping there and see a man in the photo who looks a lot like Chad. They presume he is Chad's father, and he was the hillbilly responsible for the massacre 20 years ago, contradicting Chad's story. This means that Chad is also part hillbilly, which explains his violent nature. Just then, Chad enters the room and tries to attack them again. Dale shows him the newspaper, revealing that his father was the hillbilly responsible for the murders. Despite this, Chad refuses to believe it. Meanwhile, Dale finds a box of chamomile tea and remembers that Chad is allergic to it, so he throws the tea leaves in his face, causing an asthma attack. As a result, Chad falls out the window and apparently dies. In the next scene, news crews arrive at the cabin and claim that the deaths appear to be the result of a death pact. It turns out that its leader, revealed to be Chad, whose body has yet to be found. We notice that the reporter and the cameraman are the same two from the opening scene of the film, and they do not know that the lunatic son of the hillbilly is still alive in the woods. In the hospital, Dale arrives to see Tucker and gives him a beer. Tucker, excited, tells him that the doctor managed to sew his fingers back on. He then asks about his progress with Allison, and Dale reveals that he still hasn't asked her out, but they are going bowling that night. That night at the bowling alley, Dale gives Allison a helmet as a gift, since she always passes out whenever she hits her head. He tries to confess his feelings but gets too nervous. Seeing his anxiety, Allison suddenly kisses him and tells him that she feels the same way about him.